Wallaroos and Black Ferns, folks. I'm getting ready to watch some rugby championship, but there was a closer game than last week served up as I'm assuming it's kind of the curtain raiser. It's also the Adelaide Oval where the Boks are going to take on the Wallabies. So yeah, 22-14. Pretty good game. Kind of Aussies bookend the play. I still feel like the Black Ferns left a few points out there, but we'll go through some key events, some stats, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how this game went. The Wallabies, man, I couldn't find the possession and territory stats, but I feel like they do struggle to get a bit of pill against the Black Ferns girls, and they were under a load of pressure early. Penalty conceded after penalty conceded, but to their credit, their defence holds, and that's largely the story of this game. Their backs were actually pretty sharp when they could finally get some ball and get into some space, but sometimes just living off scraps, eh? They had the first, despite being under all this pressure, the first genuine try-scoring chance of the game when Tarita, their right winger, who's I think on debut, they said, basically they've got a 2-on-1 or is it 3-on-2? They've just passing the ball wide. They got numbers out wide. It's a good pass straight to the breadbasket, but she drops it, which is maybe that bit of pressure. But most players don't get it. She gets an absolute second chance, pretty much deja vu a few minutes later because they drop the ball, they go back for an advantage. Wallaroos don't go for the penalty. They go for the try, and they get it. So happy days for the Wallaroos. 7 points to nil. Home crowd is happy. They are ahead. And it gets worse for the Black Ferns because Semple had put in a just way too upright tackle. Like, I'm surprised they didn't look at it sooner in the build-up to that try. She's just standing flat-footed, straight up and down. No attempt to bend, and as soon as I saw that, head-on-head contact, I knew she was in big trouble. They said she's passive, so even though she goes off because she's knocked out cold with a head-on-head clash, she gets yellow-carded, despite the fact she wasn't on the field anymore. So, yeah, man, that's the type of tackle that these days just attracts cards. So, yeah, Wallaroos dangerous during the yellow card, but unable to convert and end up losing the yellow card period 3-0 when they ended up conceding a penalty in front. That's the period, if I'm a Wallaroos fan, looking back at this one going, that's the period where you needed to convert and you didn't get it done. You really needed to turn the screws, but unable to. So, yeah, Black Ferns will be happy to, in fact, win the yellow card, despite that they were a player down, obviously. And then when the yellow card's over, man, they're just throwing offloads like mad. The forwards of the Black Ferns just love chucking the ball around. There is some big hits, to be fair, from the Wallaroos players. And eventually the pressure comes off, man. The hooker, Connor, I mean, it's just not even a metre out, pick and go, phase after phase, and then she's the one who finishes it off. Interesting that all the tries from the forwards this week for the Black Ferns, and it's a couple to the backs for the Wallaroos. Bit of a contrast, eh? I mean, it's not like the Black Ferns backs didn't have any ball, but just not quite clinical. I do reckon they will be ruining a few left points out there, but you do got to give credit to the Wallaroos defence because how many times did they just hold on D or win turnovers? It was pretty crazy stuff to see. Laffy, the big lock, had a yellow card for the Wallaroos. Too many penalties conceded. Dangerous time for them, but they do all right. Big scrum from the Black Ferns. The Black Ferns got like 8 phases, but they knock it on. They just can't kind of land that killer blow, lacking that kind of clinical edge. And just after the half an hour, I guess partly on the back of that big scrum, the Wallaroos changed their entire front row, and it seemed to pay dividends because they did have a wee improvement. Although over the course of the game, the scrum was certainly an area where the Black Ferns got a bit of pay. It'll be interesting to see them go up against the France or an England in that department, but they were certainly on top of the Aussies. It's still, and I want to say anybody's game. I don't think the Black Ferns are losing this at halftime when I'm going to have my dinner ready with my family and my cousin who's over here. My niece, my children's cousin. But Black Ferns pressure continues on second half, man. Another turnover one on the Wallabies' own goal line. They're hanging on for dear life. That's on like 48 minutes. But a couple of minutes later, the try, again, it does come. Some big carries in the build-up. And Namwu goes over the lock. So, yeah, big try. Just the pressure's going to gonna pay dividends, and it does. So 17 points to 7 at that point, and then on 62 minutes, Reynolds goes over. It's like 10 phases. It's the same thing. Like eventually, and they keep going back into the traffic. Hey, the forwards weren't giving the backs nothing at that point. Like straight back into the traffic, sitting there watching with mum and dad. And they're yelling, "Why aren't they trying to find the space?" Nah. Eventually it pays off, 22 points to 7. So not like the 3 prettiest tries you will ever see from the Black Ferns, but effective, 22-7. They did manage to get a consolation try at the death. Did the Wallaroos, Tarita gets a brace on her debut, so not a bad shift. I think it was Mackenzie in the build-up and had an intercept, but was caught, but kind of set them up with a bit of field position. So, yeah, man. Like I said, much closer than last week, so a better spectacle, but I didn't really think, apart from the fact the Wallaroos scored first, I didn't really think the Black Ferns were in that much danger, but certainly a better look than last week. And with the World Cup on the horizon, some interesting times. Offloads, 20-0. That's madness. The Black Ferns were absolutely chucking the ball around, but clean breaks, 6-2 to the Wallaroos. So when they did get some ball, they were looking sharp. Defenders beat us 28-14. That's a lot. That's the Black Ferns having 28, so double. Not quite double. You can't do maths, Mark. But 28-14 is a lot more. No, that is double. I can't do maths at all. Goodness gracious, man. I'm trying to teach my son maths. But yeah, 28-14. That's just, I think, speaks to the amount of possession the Black Ferns girls had. Turnovers won, though, 9-3. That was keeping the Wallaroos in the game. Defensive pressure at the breakdown. Kicks from hand is still really low, 6-8. Like, that's not even one team in the Rugby Championship games we're about to watch. So, yeah, really a lot of running rugby at this point. Line out also pretty costly for the Wallaroos, 6 from 11, whereas the Black Ferns are 13 from 14. And the penalty count, 19-12. The Wallaroos conceding way too much from the referee's whistle. Cost them a card, cost them a bit of field position. And part of that's just the scrum. But yeah, we'll see how things go going forward. Interesting game, like I mentioned. Happy that it's a bit closer. But I still think the Black Ferns are too good. And as I said, I want to see them up against an England or a France because I don't think they'll quite find it as easy to dominate up front as they did against the Wallaroos. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. Breakdown certainly encouraging for the Wallaroos, but not the result. You guys have any thoughts? And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.